You're standing in the kitchen and you walk in to grab something, and for a second, it's gone. Or you're mid-sentence with an old friend and the name of the actor in that movie you both love just will not come to you. If this has happened to you, take a breath because I want you to hear something before anything else in this video. That moment does not mean your mind is failing you. In fact, by the end of the next 20 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why that happens, and more importantly, you're going to walk away with 7 simple, everyday habits that research shows may help keep your mind sharp, clear, and confident for years to come. Some of what I'm about to share might surprise you, especially habit number 4, which almost nobody talks about. So stay with me, because the most important one might be the one you're least expecting. Welcome back to Longevity Insight, the channel where we take a closer look at the small everyday choices that can add up to a longer, sharper, more independent life. If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because we put out videos just like this one every single week, breaking down what the science actually says about aging well, without any of the confusing jargon. Okay, let's get into it. First, let's talk honestly about what's actually happening in your brain after 60, because understanding the why makes the what to do about it so much easier to follow. As we age, it's normal for the brain to process information a little more slowly than it did at 25. Walking into a room and forgetting why you went there, blanking on a name for a moment, or misplacing your keys now and then, these are usually signs of ordinary age-related forgetfulness, not something more serious. Researchers who study aging populations have found that a large share of adults over 50 actually expect to experience some cognitive decline as they get older, and many worry more about it than the actual evidence would suggest they should. That worry itself is worth naming, because anxiety about memory can sometimes make the forgetfulness feel bigger than it really is. The truth is, occasional forgetfulness is common, and it's very different from a pattern of confusion that interferes with daily life, like forgetting how to get home from a familiar place, or repeating the same question minutes apart. That second pattern deserves a conversation with a doctor, but the everyday, occasional slips, those are often just your brain juggling more information than it used to, and the good news is that lifestyle habits can meaningfully support how well that juggling act goes. There are also some common and often overlooked contributors to feeling foggy that have nothing to do with aging itself. Poor sleep is a big one. Certain medications, including some for allergies, sleep, or anxiety, can cloud thinking as a side effect. Low vitamin B12 levels, thyroid imbalances, dehydration, and untreated hearing or vision loss can all masquerade as memory problems. In fact, some research following older adults over many years has found that untreated vision problems in later life were linked to a faster rate of cognitive decline, likely because the brain simply has less clear information coming in to work with in the first place. Even depression and chronic stress can look a lot like forgetfulness from the outside, since both conditions make it harder to focus and encode new information. So before you assume the worst, it's worth having a simple conversation with your doctor to rule out these very fixable causes. It's also worth saying this plainly. The way our culture talks about aging can make ordinary forgetfulness feel far scarier than it actually is. Surveys of adults over 40 have found that a striking number of people believe cognitive decline is simply inevitable, and nearly half think it's likely they'll develop dementia at some point in their life. But interestingly, other research following people over more than a decade has found that those who felt more positively about their own aging tended to worry less about cognitive decline, and that worry itself doesn't necessarily track closely with actual cognitive performance. In other words, how you think about aging matters, not just for your peace of mind, but potentially for how you approach the very habits we're about to cover. Walking into this with a sense of I have real influence here rather than decline is inevitable is itself a healthier, more accurate starting point. Now, with that foundation in place, let's walk through the 7 daily habits that the research points to as some of the most powerful practical ways to support a sharper mind as you move through your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Habit number 1 is regular physical movement, and I don't mean you need to start training like an athlete. What the evidence actually shows is far more encouraging than that. Researchers have spent years studying how exercise affects a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is essentially your brain's memory command center, responsible for forming and storing new memories. Studies looking at moderate aerobic activity, things like brisk walking, swimming, or cycling, have found associations with increased blood flow to the brain, support for the growth of new brain cells, and higher levels of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which acts almost like fertilizer for your neurons, helping them grow and form new connections. A recent comprehensive review of decades of research on physical activity and cognitive health in older adults found compelling evidence that both aerobic exercise and resistance training, like light weightlifting or resistance bands, support memory, executive function, and mood regulation. The exciting part is that you don't need to run marathons to get these benefits. A simple daily walk, ideally outdoors where you also get natural light and a change of scenery, appears to be one of the most accessible and effective habits you can build. If you're just starting out, even 10 to 15 minutes a day, gradually building up can make a real difference. Pair it with a bit of light strength work twice a week, maybe using soup cans if you don't have weights, and you're covering two of the most well-supported forms of exercise for brain health. What's especially encouraging is that this doesn't have to happen in a gym at all. Some researchers have specifically studied whether simply walking briskly in everyday real-world settings, your own neighborhood, a local park, the mall on a rainy day, produces similar benefits to a structured exercise class, precisely because not everyone has access to or interest in a formal fitness program. The underlying idea is a hopeful one. Brain health doesn't require special equipment or a membership fee. It just requires consistency. If walking is hard on your joints, swimming or a stationary bike can offer similar cardiovascular benefits with less impact. If you have a dog, your daily walks are already doing double duty. And if mornings work better for your energy levels, try to make movement one of the first things you do in the day, before the to-do list has a chance to crowd it out. The goal isn't perfection, it's showing up for your brain most days of the week. Habit number 2, and this one deserves way more attention than it gets, is quality sleep. While you're sleeping, your brain isn't just resting, it's actively cleaning house. Scientists have identified a system in the brain called the glymphatic system, which acts like a nighttime cleanup crew, flushing out waste products and byproducts that build up during your waking hours. One of those byproducts is a protein called amyloid beta, which is linked to cognitive decline when it accumulates over time. Research using brain imaging has shown that this cleanup process becomes significantly more active during deep sleep, and that poor sleep quality or insufficient sleep duration is associated with greater buildup of these waste proteins in the brain. In other words, skimping on sleep doesn't just make you tired the next day. It may reduce your brain's ability to clear out the very substances associated with memory problems down the road. On top of that cleanup process, sleep is also when your brain consolidates the day's experiences into long-term memory, essentially filing away what you learned and experienced so you can retrieve it later. If you're someone who has struggled with sleep as you've gotten older, which is incredibly common, try to protect a consistent bedtime and wake time. Keep your bedroom cool and dark, and limit screens for the last hour before bed. Aim for 7 to 8 hours if you can. Your brain will thank you for it in ways you may not even notice day to day, but that add up significantly over the years. A few other sleep habits worth mentioning. Caffeine late in the afternoon can linger in your system far longer than you'd expect, so an early cutoff, ideally by early afternoon, can help. A short walk after dinner can also help regulate your body's natural wind-down process. And if you find yourself waking frequently through the night, it may be worth discussing with your doctor whether something like sleep apnea could be involved, since disrupted breathing during sleep is common in older adults and can quietly interfere with exactly the kind of deep restorative sleep your brain relies on for that overnight cleanup process. Treating sleep apnea when present has been associated in research with measurable improvements in daytime alertness and cognitive function, so it's absolutely worth ruling out if snoring or gasping during sleep has ever been mentioned to you by a partner. Habit number 3 is feeding your brain well, and this is where the research on the Mind diet becomes really interesting. The Mind diet combines elements of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, and it emphasizes leafy green vegetables, berries, whole grains, nuts, beans, fish, and olive oil, while limiting red meat, fried foods, sweets, and cheese. A large study published in the journal Neurology found that older adults who followed the Mind diet most closely had a meaningfully lower risk of cognitive impairment compared to those who followed it least closely, with the protective association appearing particularly strong in women. Other research on the closely related Mediterranean diet has found even larger associations, with some studies reporting a reduction in Alzheimer's disease risk of roughly 30 to 40% among those with the highest adherence compared to those with the lowest. One study even found that adding just one additional Mind diet recommended food group to your regular eating pattern was associated with a rate of cognitive decline similar to being about 2 years younger. You don't have to overhaul your entire kitchen overnight. Start small. Add a handful of berries to your breakfast. Swap out butter for olive oil when you cook. Add a side of leafy greens to dinner a few nights a week. Choose fish over red meat once or twice a week. Snack on a small handful of walnuts or almonds instead of chips. Swap out white bread and white rice for whole grain versions when you can. These are small swaps, but the cumulative research suggests they may meaningfully support your long-term brain health. It's also worth mentioning that food isn't only about individual nutrients, it's about patterns built up over months and years. One nutrient-poor meal isn't going to hurt you, and one indulgent dessert at a birthday party certainly won't undo your progress. What the research keeps pointing to is the overall pattern. More plants, more healthy fats like olive oil and nuts, more fish, and less processed, fried, and sugary food, sustained as a way of eating rather than a short-term diet. If cooking for 1 or 2 people feels like a chore, consider batch cooking a big pot of vegetable soup or a tray of roasted vegetables on the weekend. So the healthy option is also the easy option come Tuesday night when you're tired and don't feel like cooking. Habit number 4, the one I promised you at the beginning, is staying socially connected. And honestly, this may be one of the most underrated habits on this entire list. A large study following more than 150,000 adults over an average of nearly 9 years found that people who were socially isolated had a substantially higher risk of developing dementia compared to those who were not, even after accounting for genetic risk factors. Other research following older adults over many years found that persistent loneliness, especially among women, was associated with a notably increased risk of dementia and cognitive decline. Think about what social interaction actually asks of your brain. A real conversation requires you to listen, interpret tone and emotion, recall shared history, follow the thread of a story, and formulate a response, all in real time. That's a genuine cognitive workout, disguised as something enjoyable. This means that a phone call with your daughter, a weekly card game with friends, volunteering at your local community center, or even a regular chat with a neighbor while walking the dog isn't just good for your mood, it may be doing real work to protect your brain. If you found your social circle shrinking, and this happens to so many people as they get older, especially after retirement or the loss of a spouse, consider it a genuine health priority to rebuild some of that connection, whether that's joining a class, a faith community, a walking group, or simply committing to one phone call a day with someone you care about. It's worth noting that quality seems to matter as much as quantity here. You don't need dozens of friends or a packed social calendar. Research on this topic has repeatedly pointed to a lack of regular social activity, more than simply having a small circle, as the piece most consistently tied to higher risk. That's genuinely good news because it means a few meaningful recurring connections, a weekly coffee with a neighbor, a standing Sunday call with a grandchild, a monthly book club can carry real weight. If in-person options feel limited where you live, video calls have been shown to offer many of the same cognitive and emotional benefits as face-to-face interaction. So don't underestimate a simple video chat with family who live far away. And if you're a caregiver for a spouse or family member, remember that your own social needs matter too. Isolation creeps up quietly on caregivers especially, so build in your own moments of connection wherever you can. Habit number 5 is managing stress. And this one connects directly to a part of the brain we already mentioned, the hippocampus. Chronic stress floods your body with a hormone called cortisol, and over sustained periods, elevated cortisol has been associated with shrinkage in the hippocampus and impaired memory function. This doesn't mean the occasional stressful day is going to damage your brain. Our brains are resilient, and short-term stress is a completely normal part of life. But chronic unmanaged stress, the kind that lingers for months or years, is a different story. Simple daily practices can help interrupt that cycle. A few minutes of deep breathing in the morning, a short daily walk in nature, time spent on a hobby you genuinely enjoy, or even just intentionally setting aside 15 minutes a day where you're not checking the news or worrying about tomorrow. These small rituals give your nervous system a chance to come back down out of that heightened stress state. Some people find that prayer, meditation, journaling, or simply sitting quietly with a cup of tea works well for them. There's no single right answer here. The goal is simply to build in a daily pause that helps regulate your stress response over the long run. If you're someone who's always felt that meditation isn't for you, don't force it. Gardening, knitting, fishing, playing with a grandchild, or even folding laundry while listening to music you love can serve the same purpose. Anything that gently occupies your attention in the present moment, rather than letting your mind spin on tomorrow's worries or yesterday's regrets. The specific activity matters far less than the consistency of giving your nervous system that daily off-ramp. Habit number 6 is keeping your mind actively engaged, and this is different from simply staying busy. Mental stimulation means challenging your brain with something at least a little bit new or difficult, not just repeating the same familiar routine. Learning a new skill, whether that's a language, a musical instrument, a craft, or even a new recipe technique, appears to build what researchers sometimes call cognitive reserve. essentially extra scaffolding in the brain that helps it stay resilient even as some age-related changes occur. Puzzles, crosswords, and brain training games can be part of this too, but the research suggests that novelty and challenge matter more than repetition. Doing the same crossword puzzle format every single day for years is less stimulating than trying something you've genuinely never done before. Consider picking up a hobby you've always been curious about but never tried. Take a class at your local library or community college. Learn to play a card game you've never played. Try cooking a cuisine you've never attempted. Learn a handful of phrases in a new language before your next trip. Try switching which hand you use to brush your teeth for a week. A small, almost silly exercise, but one that genuinely forces new neural pathways to fire. The goal isn't to become an expert, it's to keep giving your brain new problems to solve, which appears to be one of the more consistently supported habits for building long-term cognitive resilience. Think of your brain a bit like a muscle that responds to being asked to do something slightly outside its comfort zone. Not in a stressful way, but in a genuinely engaging one. And habit number 7, the one that's easiest to overlook, is staying properly hydrated. Your brain is made up of roughly 75% water, and even mild dehydration has been shown in research to affect concentration, short-term memory, and mood. As we age, our sense of thirst naturally becomes less reliable, which means many older adults are walking around mildly dehydrated without even realizing it, simply because they don't feel thirsty the way they used to. This is a wonderfully simple fix. Keep a water bottle within eyesight throughout the day as a visual reminder. Have a glass of water with each meal and each medication you take. If plain water feels boring, try adding a slice of lemon, cucumber, or a splash of fruit juice. Herbal teas count too. The goal is roughly 6 to 8 glasses a day for most people, though your doctor can give you a more personalized target based on your health conditions, especially if you're managing something like heart failure or kidney disease, where fluid intake needs to be more carefully controlled. A simple way to check in with yourself is to notice the color of your urine. Pale yellow generally suggests you're well hydrated, while dark yellow is a sign to drink more. Foods count toward your fluid intake too. Watermelon, cucumbers, oranges, and soups all contribute meaningfully to your daily total, so it's not only about what's in your glass. So let's bring this all together. Move your body most days, even if it's just a walk around the block. Protect your sleep like it's a non-negotiable appointment with your own brain health. Feed yourself with more greens, berries, whole grains, and fish, and less red meat and fried food. Stay connected to the people you love and make new connections when you can. Give yourself small daily moments to release stress before it builds up. Challenge your brain with something new instead of just staying busy, and drink your water throughout the day. None of these habits require expensive equipment, special memberships, or dramatic life changes. They're small, sustainable, everyday choices, and the research consistently suggests that it's the accumulation of these small choices over months and years that makes the real difference. If 7 habits at once feels like a lot, here's a simple way to think about it. You don't need to start all 7 tomorrow. Pick the one that feels the most realistic for you right now. Maybe it's the daily walk, maybe it's a glass of water at each meal, and give yourself 2 weeks to make it feel automatic before adding the next one. Small layered changes tend to stick far better than a complete overhaul attempted all at once, and every single one of these habits is something you can begin today, with things you likely already have at home. Now, before you go, I want to be really clear about something important. Everything we've discussed today is about supporting normal, healthy brain aging, and these habits are not a guaranteed cure or a substitute for a proper medical evaluation. If you or someone you love is experiencing memory changes that are getting noticeably worse, that involve confusion about time or place, or that interfere with daily tasks like managing finances or medications, please talk to a doctor. Early conversations with a healthcare provider open the door to support, resources, and in some cases, treatable causes that can make a real difference. Please don't let fear keep you from that conversation, because acting early is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself or for someone you love. If this video gave you even one habit you're going to try this week, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. So drop a comment down below and let me know which one you're starting with or which one surprised you the most. Was it the sleep and lymphatic system connection? The social connection research? Or maybe the hydration piece that nobody ever talks about? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories, your questions, and even your own tips that have worked for you or someone in your family. And if you found this helpful, do me a favor and share it with someone in your life who might need to hear it today, whether that's a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a friend who's been worried about their own memory lately. You might be the reason someone finally starts taking one small step toward a sharper, more confident mind. Don't forget to subscribe to Longevity Insight if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss one of our weekly deep dives into the science of aging well. We've got more videos coming that dig into specific brain-healthy recipes, gentle exercise routines designed for older adults, and how to spot the difference between normal aging and something that deserves medical attention. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Take care of that beautiful mind of yours, and I will see you in the next one.